Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Coach Green back again with another episode of Free Game. And today I'm just going to finish talking up, for now, about speed training, speed development, why you should use it, why you should be incorporating it, and what are the most important things to take away from it as you go forward and start that process. As far as the training goes for today, the plan was to go over to the turf field and run some time 20s to get some time for myself, but as you can see, that's not going to happen today. So be inside, run some time 5s instead, which will still give me a decent idea of where I'm at speed wise and time wise, and I can construct my training from there. But first, to finish up our discussion about why speed development, speed training is so important to athleticism in general, I just compiled a very short list of qualities, very specific, some general qualities of what you get from speed training and sprinting, right? So when we train, at least from my point of view and a lot of coaches that I do know, the idea is to get as much as possible while doing the least amount of work, right? Essentially killing as many birds with as few stones as you can, right? So if we think about all of these qualities that can be improved, enhanced, and trained from just sprinting, it's a lot of different birds we're targeting with one stone. So that being said, as far as athletic performance goes, strength and conditioning, regardless of whatever sport you play, sprinting, speed training, true speed training should be a very large staple in your program. So when we think about incorporating speed and sprinting into a training program, the most important things to take away from this is one, obviously focusing on mechanics, technique, all of that, the different phases of sprinting, and then also, more importantly, almost more importantly, the work to rest ratios, right? Again, sprinting is a extremely high intensity activity, 90 to 100% of your capabilities as far as how fast you're actually able to run. So that's pushing yourself, redlining if we're thinking about race cars, as hard as you can. Then we have to shut it down, take the appropriate rest to be able to recover, and then be able to do that a few more times in any given session, right? To be able to really improve something, you have to take rest and put full effort into it while you're doing it without worrying about having to recover and go again. The general guidelines for work to rest ratios is for every 10 yards or 10 meters of sprint work you do, you rest for at least 1 minute. Okay, obviously that's dependent upon how much time you have available, how many sets, reps, whatever you have to do for the rest of the day or the training session. But generally speaking, again, for every 10 yards or 10 meters, you want to take at least a minute rest. That can be shorter, obviously, if you're doing fewer reps, or if you have, if you do speed training. For example, we do speed training at the school I coach at for football. We do our speed training before practice, right? On our high intensity days. Obviously, practice also is a high intensity thing. But for our high intensity speed work, we do that before practice, so we don't do that many. So the rest isn't the full minute, and we haven't gone any further than 15 yards just because it's football and most of them don't run 15 yards anyways. But we do about 10, 15. We've done 20 before, but that was only one time. And we take at least a minute, right, on the shorter runs, or on the shorter sprints rather, 10 yards, sometimes 5 yards. At least 45 seconds. We have different groups going at a time. So once one group goes, the other groups can rest, and vice versa. Is that snow? Anyways, work to rest ratio, technique and mechanics. That is snow. Work to rest ratio, technique and mechanics, volume. Those are 3 things we need to really focus on when incorporating sprinting into a training program. Also keeping in mind that sprinting is going to be the highest intensity thing you're going to do on any given day. So making sure we put the sprint work, right, the speed work before, whether it be a lift, practice, whatever it may be, put that before so we can have our highest intensity and highest quality work being done early on, then everything else, not that it's not important, it's not going to be as high CNS work as the sprint work should be. Last thing I wanted to touch on before we get to the actual training session is footwear and other clothing items. Depending on where you are, what the weather's like, when you're doing this, one, footwear is extremely important just because that's where everything is based from, right? If our feet aren't able to do what they're supposed to do, it's going to be really hard, near impossible for everything else above them to do what they're supposed to, right? So making sure we have good footwear that's good for sprinting. And on that note, running shoes and sprinting shoes are not the same thing. Remember, running shoes are not necessarily for comfort, but they are for absorbing more force and having a little more cushion while you're running, since that's a slower activity. For sprinting, since it's a higher intensity, higher impact activity, you shouldn't have that much cushion just because your joints have to be able to stabilize themselves so the muscles can fire the way they're supposed to. So you want a flatter shoe, not necessarily flat, but you want a shoe with less cushion than a running shoe that has a very small amount of give, so you're able to react off of the ground the way you need to. And to close all this out, this was all fairly general information on speed training, speed development, and sprinting. Obviously, we can go deeper in detail on what really goes on and what you need to do as far as improving speed and how that relates to your athletic and sport performance. But this is just general, covering why you should do it, what it is, how to do it. We go from there. On to the sprints. disrespect meant at all. Some of y'all's cleans and other Olympic movements, they suck. And it's not your fault. You just haven't been instructed properly from someone who knows and understands what the movements require, what they should look like. And I'm not saying that as if I'm some Olympic champion or anything like that. But one, I'm certified. Two, I'm qualified. Three, I practice myself. And there are circumstances, sure, where, a coach or whoever, trainer, may not be physically able or capable to do these type of movements. If that's the case, just don't do them. There's no rule that says you have to do power cleans to play a sport. There are other movements that you could get a similar benefit from and don't have to go through the process of learning the Olympic movements. That's not to say the Olympic movements are super difficult to learn. They take time. I get it. I understand. Not everybody has the time to teach an efficient clean or snatch or its variations. But if you're not fitting in the time to learn these things, don't do it. Again, I say this with all respect and love. It's not for everybody. I get that. So I'll probably at some point, since this is the end of the speed discussions for now, when we get to power, because that'll be the next thing we discuss, I'll probably have a video about good clean, snatch, and the variations. And I'll talk through them, explain, go through the same thing we do with speed, what they are, why we use them, how to do them, how to correct, how to improve, how to increase load, things like that, how to supplement, and we'll go from there. Again, I'm doing this to help guys. So if there's something that you're not really getting as far as efficiency, effort, intensity, things like that, don't do it. But again, I'm here to help. Another note, and we'll discuss this again in more depth when we get to the power Olympic movement video down the road. You don't need to lift a lot of weight to be a better athlete, field or court athlete. There's no requirement that says that's what it takes. You can look at all the elite athletes in professional sports. A lot of them, I don't want to say a lot of them, a good amount of them, they're not the strongest or even best individuals when it comes to weight room movements. And that's completely fine. The weight room is a tool, right? Nobody's playing a sport in the weight room on game day. These are tools that we're using to improve athleticism. The tool of strength, if that's what you're in here for, it doesn't take a lot of weight to get strong. I got a set of power blocks. They go up to 50 pounds. There are numerous movements and ways to do the movements that strength will eventually increase. Now, obviously, you'll get to a point where the 50 pounds might not be enough, 100 pounds if you're using both, but strength will still be achieved. And there are other ways. You can use tempos, you can use pauses, things like that, to improve strength. So you don't need to put a whole bunch of weight on a movement, especially if you're not good at that movement. You need to get better at the movement or don't do it. workout, speed, high intensity, upper body, total body. And that's it. That is speed. We're still going to do speed, obviously, throughout the remainder of however long. But the discussion or the classroom session for the day will change over the next several weeks. So speed done. High CNS, low CNS. Sprint fast, sprint efficiently, sprint often. Record it. Time it as much as you can. Take the rest. Take the rest to make sure each sprint is absolutely as fast as you can possibly make it. It's not going to be your fastest every time, but over time, with repetition, just like everything else, you'll see the improvement. It takes time. You just got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. I'm here. Shoot me questions if you got them. I'll try to answer as best I can. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Have a good one.